Gentse Gruut Brouweriji, Gruit Bruin.
And remember, life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Fucking hell, what a mouthful that was. The old Flems are getting nearly as bad as the French for their language. Might have to have a word about that. Anyway, first of all, before we go any further, it is now Yuletide, Christmas Day, whatever you want to call it. So, happy Yule to everyone out there. This is a beer that was bought for me before Christmas, and I've got through all the Christmas beers now, so I'm starting to work through all the other Belgian beers that I bought. And this one I picked up, and I didn't know anything about it, but what intrigued me was the word Gruit on the side of it. Now, Gruit, if you don't know, is a style of beer, and Gruit was the original beer. The recipe goes back over 1,000 years. They were brewing Gruit beer, I wouldn't say in ancient times, but certainly in early medieval times, possibly the Dark Ages as well. Now, what is Gruit beer? Well, Gruit beer is basically any beer that doesn't contain hops. Now, hops only became popular in brewing, certainly in Central Europe and Northern Europe especially. Hops only became really popular, I would say, in the sort of 15th century. Certainly, if you look at the Reinheitsgebot, 1516, you know, that's when they said beer can only be brewed with hops, etc. But there was beer being brewed before that in the sort of mid to late 1400s. So hops in beer is, in relative terms, you know, when you consider beer is nearly 2,000 years old, in relative terms, it is a new thing. But this was the stuff that was being brewed before, and it contained all manner of stuff. I mean, it really was a free-for-all. You had all sorts of herbs in there, spices as well, berries, nuts, you name it, it went in there. And it varied from district to district, but it was only really popular, I mean really popular, in certain regions of Belgium, what is now the Netherlands, and also some parts of northwestern Germany. And yeah, it was an adjunct free-for-all. Loads of stuff went in there, and it was only when hops became, certainly in Germany anyway, it was only when hops became law that everybody else saw that hops were actually quite a good ingredient to use. But hops were used in Gruit beer, but it wasn't standardised, if you know what I mean, so they'd just be throwing that in there. And it's an interesting style, and you do get modern takes on it as well. The only Gruit beer that I've tasted that is a sort of modern take on it, I think it could possibly, now I could be wrong on this, but the only one that's been brewed in the UK in recent times is the Frock, which I think that's how it's pronounced, could be wrong, which is brewed by the Williams Brothers Brewery, and that's brewed with heather. Because apparently hops don't grow in Scotland. That's what I've been told. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I tried it, and to be honest, it ain't great. If you want to, it's one of the earliest reviews I did on the channel, so if you want to have a look, just do a search for Williams Brothers and you'll see that Frock. It honestly, it wasn't, put it this way, it didn't taste of anything. They could have put anything in there, and it was just a fizzy drink. That's the only way I can describe it. It just didn't, it lacked flavour. But this stuff looks interesting. And yeah, it's got on it a secret blend of herbs and spices. And I've also read on their website that they've been, this brewery, the Gentse Gruut Brouweriji, which they're from Ghent in Belgium. And I've just looking on here, it says a secret blend of herbs and spices. And as I said, I've just read that they've now made this gluten-free. So this, I would say, is the exact opposite, or the other extreme of the Reinheitsgebot. With Gruit beer, It's a fucking free-for-all. You can throw in a dead cat, you name it. I wouldn't advise it, and I wouldn't advise drinking it either, but that's what Gruit is. It's basically brewed with spices and herbs that aren't hops. So there you go. Now we've got that out of the way. As I say, the brewery is the Gentse Gruut Brewery. I think that's how it's pronounced, and they're from a place called Ghent, which is in Flanders in Belgium, and they've been going since 2009, which is relatively new considering the style of beer. And all their beers, they do the full range of Belgian beers. They do blondes, etc. They're all Gruit beers, which I think is is interesting to say the least. I mean, that definitely is a modern take. You can't knock them for originality, because it's not a popular style of beer, because everyone's using hops now, and of course with craft brewers using American hops, to do something like this is just an absolute buck of the trend. So, you know, hats off to them. Anyway, let's stop gassing. Let's investigate what this beer is. Right, it's a 330ml bottle. It's a, according to the label on the bottle, it says it's 7%, but on the website it says it's 8%. So I don't know. Maybe it may have changed. Maybe that could have changed when they did the gluten treatment of the wheat, you know, where they remove the enzyme. I don't know. That normally doesn't lower the ABV, but who knows. This is a Gruit beer, as I say, and the ingredients are water. Have they got them in English? Or am I going to have to translate them from German? They don't like the fucking English. What do we ever do on the Belgians? For fuck's sake, we helped you out in 2 wars. Christ almighty. I didn't personally help them out. I was a little fucking swimmer in my dad's bag. What are we looking at? We have got water, Gasten malt, which is malted barley. Yeah, deglutenized. The German word, deglutenized. Cruden. What the fuck is cruden? Noten. That's nuts, I think. And gist. What's gist? Gist? Oh, fuck knows. I don't know. Cruden. What the fuck is cruden? I'm trying to... Oh, they got it in English. Fucking... It should be in big, bold letters for fucking ignorant bastards like me. Ingredients. Let's try again. Ingredients. Water. Barley malt. Deglutenized. Herbs. Oh, that must be what cruden means. Herbs. And nuts and yeast. Gist is yeast in German. Could it be where the word grist comes from? Who knows? Who cares? Let's get this bottle home and see what Gruit beer is all about. Right, it's Christmas. And for Christmas, I got a lot of stuff. I got, what did I get? I got a bottle of Jack Daniels from stepdaughter, but it's in the guitar case. Really nice. I'm probably not going to drink it, but I'm going to keep the case. It looks absolutely gorgeous. A motorbike clock, a little Harley, and a little light up motorbike sign. I've got guitar hooks, so I can put the guitars, hang them on the wall, so they're not fucking falling over them, or they're not falling over when I open the fridge. And I'll tell you what else I did get. I got a grumpy old man shirt, which is the wrong size, and I moaned about it. What a twat! But I got a presentation box from Lucy's daughter and fella, and it was a Leffe. It was a bottle of Leffe and a Leffe glass. Now, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Leffe, but it was the Leffe blonde, which I don't mind. It's not too bad. That is drinkable, but it also contains some Leffe chutney for use with cheese, and I tried it, and do you know what? It is not fucking bad. So I recommend the Leffe chutney. Very nice indeed. Anyway, let's get this open. The point of all this was to say that I got a Leffe glass in this presentation box. So if you're wondering why I'm drinking out of a Leffe glass, that is the reason. And do you know what? It is not a bad glass either. It's got a very nice logo that's put into the stem of the glass, which makes it really ergonomic and nice to hold in the hand. So that's another good thing. So it's not all bad from Leffe, even though their Christmas beer is a fucking bag ladies period in a bottle. But there you go. There you go. Right, what are we getting on the nose? On Gruit beer. Oh, a lot of carbonation. That smells, wow, is it my imagination or does that smell sour? No, it doesn't, that's my imagination. Or is it? There is a nutty aroma to it, but my mind is telling me that it's got like a little, now this is going to sound disgusting, but almost like sour milk, but it's not. That is the weirdest aroma from a beer. There is definitely nutty aromas coming from that. And it is putting me in mind of a brown ale. Now this is actually a Bruin. I don't know whether I've mentioned that earlier. It's a Bruin or a Donker, whatever you want to call it. There is the cap. Oh, I'll have to put this down to get the autofocus to do its fucking job. Cap's seen better days. That's all. You're probably not going to see nothing there, so there you go. Here's the label on the bottle. Gruit. But that aroma, wow. It's like nutty sour milk. That's what, or is it? It's not sour milk. It's like a sourdough, if you can imagine that. You ever smelt sourdough? That's the only two aromas I'm getting, which is alarming and intriguing at the same time. Let's get it down the hatch. Bottoms up. That's interesting. That's got absolutely none of the characteristics of a Belgian beer, which in some cases isn't bad. And it has, it's not my imagination. It has got a very subtle, sour aroma to it. And it's got a very subtle, sour flavour to it. That wasn't my imagination. And it does linger. But it's got quite a nutty flavour to it as well.
It's a bit nutty.
Or has it? This is really making me have to think what this is. There's definitely sourness there. I can definitely get that now. There was a lot of carbonation in that. And the finish is slightly nutty, quite long lasting, but not big. And to be honest, it is reminded me a lot of that Frock beer. It's not big on flavour. I will say that. It's got a slight sourness and a slight nuttiness to it. Let me see if I swill it about, that carbonation, will it give me anything else? Slightly bitter, nutty finish on it, which is quite long lasting, but in the palate, not a lot of flavour. And that seems to be a trend with these Gruut beers. It's just, and this was the Frock, this was the same as the Frock as well. It's just, there's just not a lot of flavour in it. Now anybody that thinks hops don't equal flavour, there is the proof. Now when I do the descriptions of beers and I read out the hop character, the hop flavours, there's a reason. Because hops flavour beer. And as I say, if you want proof, try this and then try hopped beer. This really just lacks any real discernible flavour. Mouthfeel's quite nice, very drinkable. Finish, again, just a little bit of sourness, a little bit of nuttiness, and that's it. And now, again, there's a lot to be said for this beer. I urge you to try a Gruut beer, and you will realise why hops became popular in beer. Despite the fact they're, despite the fact they're a sort of a preservative, and despite the fact that some people touted back in the day they were an antiseptic, which I don't fucking buy into at all, but they did flavour the beer, and they flavoured the beer quite nicely, because people would have been drinking not this obviously, but something like this. And to be honest, it's this one, and I'm only going on the two that I've tried, but there really is no real definition on this at all. It's just on the finish, it's quite a long finish. Slightly bitter, slightly nutty, with a little bit of sourness on it. But in the mouth, I'm really not getting much at all. Yeah, strange one, that one, but a good. I'm glad I tried that, because that is a good marker for, you know, when you can discern whether a beer has got decent hop character, whether they've used quality hops, or, you know, whether they're flavouring their beer with other sorts of nasties. I suppose this is beer. I wouldn't say beer in its purest form, because it can contain almost anything, and as I said, it varies. And even, you know, back in, well, medieval times, it probably varied from region to region. It was just basically what you could get hold of, and that was thrown in the beer. But for me, that just doesn't really do anything for me. So what's the verdict on Gruut? Well, I see what they're doing in this brewery. They are upholding a almost ancient tradition. Well, medieval tradition certainly, and it is part of the heritage, the brewing heritage of Belgium, the Netherlands, and even some parts of Germany. But it's a bold move to make in this day and age, especially with and technically you could call them a craft brewery. They've been around since 2009, but to do this in an age where everybody is going absolutely mental for these American hops, not me personally, but they're popular, it's a bold move. And to be honest, with beer like this, I was quite looking forward to it, because I don't mind a Belgian brewing, but when I discovered it was a Gruut beer, you know, I bought it knowing it was a Gruut beer, but it's one that I have to try. You know, if I'm reviewing beer, I need to say that I've tried Gruut beer, which I had done before anyway. I didn't think much of it, so I thought, why not go to the source? You know, Williams Brothers, craft brewer, probably they're brewing it for their own, you know, heritage and stuff. So go to Belgium, try the recipes from Belgium, and to be honest, there is flavour, don't get me wrong. There is a little sourness to it, and a fair amount of nutty bitterness on the finish, but overall it's very pleasant drinking, put it that way. What am I going to do? What mark am I going to give this? I think I'll give it a 6 out of 10, just for the boldness and for the style of beer to brew that. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I'll definitely recommend it, because you need to try this to appreciate the hops that go into beer. And yeah, you pick it up from Beers of Europe, that's where I got it. It's quite cheap as well. So yeah, 6 out of 10. Recommended, not for the taste, but to try Gruut beer. And remember, beer is working class champagne.